Hello and welcome to the very last edition of Campaign Chronicles, France 24's regular countdown to the presidential election. I'm joined by our French politics editor, Mark Perelman. Good evening.
Good evening.
And our media editor, James Creedon. James, you'll have the latest reactions from the press and social media.
That's right.
Mark, we start with you. Today is the very last day of campaigning, and the verdict is due Sunday at 8 p.m. Paris time.
Absolutely. The campaign officially ends Friday tonight at midnight. And so the candidates are finishing what has been a long run, a long haul, I should say, for François Hollande. He started campaigning 1 year ago. No one believed he would stand a chance. He was really very limited in terms of chances of getting even selected by his own party, the Socialist primary, but he battled through. He was lucky, probably because the favorite Dominique Strauss-Kahn dropped out. On the other hand, Nicolas Sarkozy, of course, because he was president, chose the blitzkrieg option, meaning he had 80 days of campaign, which is really short. And
he started really late.
He started really late, and but you know, it was a strategy. He was also presiding, so it was a little bit difficult. And so, but you also have different personalities. François Hollande was trying to be the normal, quote-unquote, president, while Nicolas Sarkozy was the quote-unquote hyper-president, very different personalities, and they clashed during the one and only debate they had this Wednesday night. And today was the last day of campaigning. No big rallies. They were held yesterday, but there were small rallies, and they obviously hit the airwaves this morning. And both of them are quite confident they can win. Nicolas Sarkozy knows that it would be a major performance if he wins, but he thinks he can really still pull it off. François Hollande is more confident. He's the favorite.
Every vote will count on... You cannot imagine to what extent the outcome will be on a razor's edge. I can feel the rise. I can feel the wave of a surge of support I've never known and never felt in our country.
I hope for a clear victory. I say that not to force people. I may not win. I'm still humble before Sunday's voters. But if France wants to make a choice, it has to do it in a grand way, in a clear way, and with universal support, so that the winner will have the ways and means to make changes. So don't make this a narrow victory, otherwise the winner will struggle from day one.
And Mark, the two contenders also reacted to a surprise announcement yesterday that centrist leader François Bayrou was going to vote for Hollande, so was going to vote to the left, whereas traditionally he's more to the right.
Yes, absolutely. This was the biggest upset of the last few days of the campaign, much more than the debate. The centrist leader, François Bayrou, saying he would vote personally for François Hollande. He did not give any indication to his voters or sympathizers in terms of what they should do next Sunday, but he said he would vote for François Hollande because he feels Nicolas Sarkozy has gone too far to the right and had broken with the traditions of Gaullism and of his own centrist tendency. And so this was a very big upset. Nicolas Sarkozy is reportedly furious about it. There were calls of treason even in his own camp. However, Nicolas Sarkozy tried to point out the incoherence of François Bayrou, who always was with the right and suddenly shifts to the left, while, of course, not surprisingly, François Hollande, the socialist candidate, thinks François Bayrou is perfectly coherent. Let's listen to both contenders.
Bayrou says that after a lot of deliberation, he plans to vote for François Hollande, but then goes on to say that Hollande will lead the country into bankruptcy by February. Is that logical? Is it wrong to find that a bit incoherent?
Yes, it is coherent. It's not for me to defend François Bayrou, but his decision is logical. For 5 years, François Bayrou's not stopped criticizing a presidential term that was one of empty words, errors of judgment and divisions. He drew his conclusions.
Now let me turn to our media editor, James Creedon. James, you've got some cartoons satirizing Bayrou's decision.
That's right. I saw a lot of cartoons kind of on my Facebook news feed this morning as the day went on, and also on Twitter, and I just said, why not show a few of them? A lot of them referring to François Bayrou's perceived treason, and you can see here this one by one particular cartoonist called Rocks, and he's smacking Sarkozy in the face.
Slap in the face for Nicolas Sarkozy.
And that is an in-joke referring back to 2002 when Bayrou famously slapped a child in the face on the campaign trail in Strasbourg because this child in question was trying to pickpocket him. So, and Bayrou says here, it's because you were pickpocketing FN votes. You were going
far
to the
right.
Far right votes, exactly. So a rather red-cheeked Sarkozy there. And this one here, this by Le Monde's cartoonist Plantu, quite a violent image there of Bayrou. Defacing, to say the least, Sarkozy in order to hand his vote over to
a love-struck François Hollande.
Yes, looking absolutely thrilled, and yeah, there you go.
Mark, you've got the latest polling figures. Hurry up, get them in, because starting at midnight, we can't give them anymore.
Yes, absolutely. Those are the last official polls. Both candidates will probably receive additional polls tomorrow, maybe Sunday.
But we won't be able to talk about
We
them.
won't be able to talk about it, obviously. So two polls, because there is a slight difference. The first one by TNS Sofres shows what's been the trend in recent days. François Hollande, 53.5%. Nicolas Sarkozy, 46.5%.
That would be a massive victory.
That would be a big
By
victory,
French
and this is basically the margin with which Nicolas Sarkozy won back in 2007 against socialist Ségolène Royal. There's another poll taken by IFOP, which is a daily poll. It's the last time we get it. Interestingly, 52-48. Why is it so interesting? Because it's the narrowest gap we've had ever since the beginning of the campaign, and in most polls, Nicolas Sarkozy is inching up and François Hollande is going down. Obviously, Nicolas Sarkozy hopes this will continue
until
1
Sunday.
point a day, and we're 2 days away, so it's 50-50. But this is the closest it's been. However, it's outside the margin of error, which is, for this poll, 2.8%. So Nicolas Sarkozy has never been within the margin of errors, but polling institutes can make mistakes, and we've seen this before. However, as Nicolas Sarkozy indicated in his comment, if he wins, it would really be by a razor-thin margin.
James, you've got another poll that's even more razor-thin, right? A very, very close one.
That's right. Now, it never really gets mentioned. It's by a company, by an organisation called Election Scope, and I think
it's not the big polling institute.
It's absolutely not. But what's interesting about it is it uses a different model for calculating the percentiles. Now, just to explain how it works, and Atlantico, the website Atlantico, is talking about it here. What they do is they go region by region. Generally, what polling companies do is they take the country across the board, if you're a far-right voter, if you're a centrist voter, if you're a traditional right voter. And what they point out is that if you're a National Front voter, sometimes you are traditionally from the left, and you are just disillusioned with politics. And if there is a very strong left wing in your particular region, you might just go back to the left. Similarly, for centrist voters, if they're trying to pick who they will vote for in the second round, it's very, very difficult to kind of find out who they'll vote for. And often by region, it varies massively. So they go region by region, and they have Nicolas Sarkozy winning by a slim margin, 50.2%. They also point out in this article on Atlantico that essentially the left got 43.7% in the first round, and it's now predicted to get 55%, which is a massive jump, never seen before in the Fifth Republic. And in fact, if you go by Fifth Republic precedents, they would need to have got 49% in the first round to hope to win. So they're just basically pointing out that their model is different, it's unique, and in fact, things mightn't be all that they seem in terms of where the votes are going to go this Sunday.
And that's the only poll that pits Sarkozy as the winner. It's interesting. There still is some suspense, as to what will happen.
If they're right Sunday night, it'll be major.
They'll be becoming a major polling institute.
One headline, Guy Berenbaum, he says, if Sarkozy wins, it's the death of polls.
That's interesting.
Well, the reason is that we receive polls, but the presidential candidates receive lots of polls, tons of polls. Nicolas Sarkozy is known to be a big user of polls, despite the fact that he now trashes the polling institute, saying they're wrong, they're underestimating him, and so on. But he's a huge consumer of polls, and this is probably why the pollsters might have less money in the pocket once Nicolas Sarkozy is out of the Élysée.
Next, to an issue that's caused much concern for French citizens abroad, some expats have been unable to take part in the first round of the election for administrative reasons. The Foreign Affairs Ministry has now set up a team to deliver last-minute authorizations to vote in the second round. The problem isn't as new as you're about to find out. Take a look at this report.
Mohamed is a French citizen who used to live in Canada. When he turned up at the polling station for the first round of the presidential election, he was told he could not vote.
I had my electoral card. I thought I was allowed to vote, having changed my address. But no, I couldn't believe my name was still on the Canadian electoral list.
According to French law, expats can be registered on electoral lists both in France and abroad. This to enable French nationals to vote in the presidential ballot from any country in the world, and in local elections as well, if he or she happens to be in France at the time. The problem in Mohamed's case is that once he had moved back to his home country, he should have been taken off the Canadian list in order to be able to vote in the French presidential ballot. It's the rule, a complicated system. In 2007, it prevented 7,000 expats from casting their ballots.
In the future, I believe we need to spend time thinking about this issue. Us and the Interior Ministry need to look at how we can change the current situation to make things more simple.
Since the first round of the presidential election, 13,000 people have contacted the Foreign Ministry to make sure they can vote on Sunday. These former expats who are now back in France feel it's their duty and their right to pick the next president.
So this is the last edition of Campaign Chronicles. I want to thank all the team that's worked on Campaign Chronicles, especially Nariman Lawadi, Gary Schimmelbauer, and all our reporters who went on the field to follow the candidates, Clovis Casali, Valérie Labonne, Julie Dingelhoff, and Luke Brown. And I probably forget somebody. I want to thank everyone. And thanks, James Creedon, for being on ship.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you both for being here, and thank you at home for watching. That was Campaign Chronicles on France 24.
Tomorrow is diving into a new culture and loving every minute. Fly Emirates. Hello, tomorrow.